guys, today I'm gonna do a tag video, which I feel like I haven't done in forever. I remember like 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, tags used to be so popular and I used to do them all the time. It was one of the reasons I wanted to start my YouTube channel in the first place because I was always watching tags. They were going around, everybody was doing them, and I don't know what happened, but like tags just kind of seemed to die out. But today I'm going to be doing the eyeshadow palette part 2 tag. I think this was started by Samantha March and Ali Glines last year, like late last year. And I've seen so many of my friends doing it. I will link both of their channels down below, as well as the questions to the tag if you want to do this yourself. But I'm really excited. If you're wondering about the look that I'm wearing today, I'm using the Blend Bunny, if I can find it here in my pile of palettes, which is actually one of the palettes that I'm going to be talking about. But this is the Surge palette from Blend Bunny, and it looks like this. It's absolutely beautiful. And if you're wondering about the jewelry I'm wearing today, well, let me tell you, because today's video is actually sponsored by Ana Luisa, and I wear the jewelry from Ana Luisa all the time. They reached out to me because they are having a Valentine's Day sale. They're doing a buy one get one 40% off promotion, which I think is amazing, and I will happily promote it because I love my pieces so much. I will show you some close-ups of the pieces that I ended up picking up this time because I think that they are really, really pretty. But if you're unfamiliar with Ana Luisa, they are a sustainable jewelry brand. They are, as of last year, carbon neutral. They make all of their jewelry in really small batches. They are gold and silver plated, and I have had no problems whatsoever with the quality of any of the jewelry that I've gotten from Ana Luisa. I started working with them, I want to say 2 years ago now, and a lot of the pieces that I have, I've literally worn multiple times a week because I just love them and I haven't had any kind of discolorations, any kind of wear on them, and they still look just as beautiful as they did when I first got them, which makes me so happy because it's nice to see that jewelry that's not really that expensive like holds up as well as it has over time. All of the jewelry always comes sent in like this tiny cardboard box, and inside are these really cute recyclable pouches, and I think these are just adorable. Like I always keep mine because these are nice for if you want to like bring a piece of jewelry somewhere and just like chuck it in your bag or whatever. Like these are really nice. So let me go ahead and show you the pieces that I ended up getting. So obviously I'm wearing them. I mean, you can see them here. I think my favorites are probably the earrings because I've gotten so much use out of these already. I think they're so versatile. I think that the size of them is perfect for someone who likes statement jewelry but doesn't want it to be like overpowering, especially like, you know, I wear a lot of makeup, so for me it's nice to have something that doesn't like clash with my makeup but rather complements it. And I like the fact that most of the pieces from Ana Luisa are quite plain, but they're still pretty interesting, and I think that's why I like them so much. So these are called the Paris earrings. These are $75. I think that this is one of my favorite pieces that I've ever picked out from Ana Luisa, and it's probably going to be the ones that I'm going to get the most use out of all of the things that I have because I can see myself just reaching for these all the time. I also am wearing a new necklace here, which I don't really have a lot of necklaces that are more like a choker. It's not really a choker because it's not like that high up, but it's quite a small necklace. And I really like this for when I want to wear like sweaters that I don't want to have like my necklace over, but I also don't wear like V-necks that often. So it's nice to have something that's like kind of closer to my neck that I can style with like a sweater like this, where I want to have something, but I don't want it to hit like in a weird spot like right here. And this is called the Jusuf, I probably mispronounced that, I'm so sorry, necklace. And this is $59. I think this is absolutely stunning and something that I really felt like was lacking in my jewelry collection. I also have a ring here that I ended up picking up, and this one is one of the adjustable ones. I really like the fact that they have adjustable rings as well as not adjustable rings. I don't know my ring size. I literally have no idea. I don't know how to measure it. I'm lazy, so if I can get an adjustable ring, like I'm probably just going to do that because that way I don't have to fuss with trying to figure out like which size to get. So I think that is great, and I think it's really cute. I've been wearing it all the time, and I think that it just gives you a little bit of extra something on your hands. I'm not someone who really likes to use like bracelets and stuff because I find them to just be in the way, but having a little cute ring like this just adds a little bit extra to an outfit. So if you're interested in checking out Ana Luisa, I will of course have the link down below. Thank you, Ana Luisa, for sponsoring this video. I hope that you guys check it out because, like I said before, it is Valentine's Day and it's a great time to not only give someone you love a gift, but also to give yourself a gift because you deserve it. So let's go ahead and move into the tag. I'm really excited to be talking about these palettes because a lot of these were like really tough questions. So we're just gonna jump straight in. I'm gonna go ahead and find my list here of the questions because I had to screenshot them. So I have already picked out my palettes because I wanted to be somewhat prepared, which I usually am not. So the first question here is, all-time favorite palette. And like, listen, I have so many palettes. This was not really a fair question to answer, but I'm of course going to, I don't know if this is cheating, but like, need I say more? I mean, I've done 2 collab palettes. Of course, these are my all-time favorite palettes because I created them. So sadly, these are no longer available, which I'm so sorry. Menagerie did just restock the Serenity palette, and I know I never posted anything about it because honestly, I was under contract with Woodside that I wasn't allowed to promote this. So I wasn't able to, let you know that this was going to get restocked, which is totally fair, and I totally respect that. I mean, this palette did get delayed for quite some time. It wasn't meant to launch as late as it did, and the pandemic happened and things just kind of got pushed back. But if you for some reason haven't seen this palette, if you're like new to my channel or something, this is the palette that I did with Menagerie. I think it's so beautiful. I mean, of course, this is going to be one of my all-time favorite palettes forever because the experience of just being able to work with a brand and create a vision and just see it come to life was just so surreal. Like, I never thought that I'd be able to do something like this, and it just sparks so much joy, which is actually another question, is a palette that sparks joy, but we're going to talk about something else later on. And then, of course, the palette that I did with Woodside, this is the Giant Wolves palette. This is also, of course, one of my all-time favorite palettes, and combining these two, you have like my favorite color story of all time. So I mean, I felt like I had to mention him because there wouldn't be another palette that would have been able to fit into like my favorite of all time, because I just have so many palettes that I cannot choose. I just can't. Like, it's not fair to pick amongst my babies because I love all of my, well, that's a lie. I almost said I love all of my palette, which is not true at all because I'm pretty good at decluttering, but I do have a soft spot in my heart for a lot of my palettes, so I wouldn't be able to just pick one. And I'm not gonna pick just one for most of these questions because I don't like to pick favorites. Like, I want to share the spotlight with more than one palette. So next up is the question, what is a palette you keep for the memories? And I thought that this one was quite interesting because I wasn't sure at first, and then I started looking through my palettes and I saw this one and I was like, ah, oh, of course. So this is the Dragon Child palette from former Makeup Monsters, which is now Menagerie, which is the brand that I ended up doing a collab with. This I keep for sentimental reasons because this was probably the palette that really got me into colorful makeup. Like, this was the first super colorful, like, in-your-face palette with extreme pigment that I had ever gotten, and it was also the first palette that I ever reviewed on my channel. So it has a very, very soft spot in my heart, and it's probably what made me connect with Menagerie in the first place. And I haven't used this in probably 2 years now. Like I said, this is an old palette. It's probably like 4 years old. And I know that some of my other Menagerie palettes that I've had for a long time has not aged as well as some other brands, and these were also handmade shadows, and they were some of the first that they ever made. So I'm guessing that this formula isn't going to be as good anymore as some of their newest palettes, but I love this palette. I think this is so cute, and I'm so happy that I ended up buying that palette because I feel like it just like sparked something in me that made me want to sort of do what it is that I do now. And I don't know where I would be if I hadn't bought this palette. I know that sounds weird, but this palette definitely has a very, very special place in my heart. The next question is most underrated, and I feel like I need to say a brand here more than anything, and I don't know if this is just because this is a UK-based brand, and this is P. Louise. Like, I don't feel like a lot of people on YouTube really talk about P. Louise, but I feel like P. Louise has one of the best matte formulas ever made. And I'm specifically going to be referring to the Worldy palette here because this was my second best palette of 2020, I want to say. And this was when I first like fell in love with P. Louise as a brand and their formula. This is mostly an all matte palette. And this color story is beautiful. All of the shadows perform like an absolute dream, except for the shimmers, which I'm not a fan of, but there's only 3 in here. But the matte formula from P. Louise, man, like, why don't people talk about this more? Like, I really don't understand. And I'm going to be mentioning her newest palette in another one of the questions as well. But I feel like P. Louise is a brand that needs more. I think it's just because it's not a American brand. I think that they also don't send out PR. I think if P. Louise has started sending out PR to like American or people who live in the States influencers and not just like focusing on the UK and on their Instagram, I think that they would get so much more exposure, and I think that so many more people would be able to appreciate how good their formula is, because it is truly one of a kind. Like, I feel like the P. Louise mattes are so good, and now since they've started coming out with new shimmers as well, like, I feel like I'll be buying anything from P. Louise like in the future, because I just have such a good time with their palettes. Next question is, what is a palette that's not a favorite, but you can't get rid of it? I actually have two palettes here, and I did do my eyeshadow palette declutter part 1 and 2. I will link those in the corner if you missed those. And these made it through, and I honestly, looking at them, I'm like, why am I keeping these? But I also know that, especially for the first one here, this is the Freya palette from Onsai. And this color story is just kind of boring. Like, I mean, look, this is not me at all. It's mostly mid-tone mattes. It's mostly mid-tone shimmers. There's not a good range in like deep to light shades. And I am never probably going to use this palette because it's just not really me, you know? But it is from Onsai, and I have everything that Onsai has ever come out with because they have sent me all of it, and I love them as a brand. Obviously, I did a collab with them. I want to have a full, complete collection. Even though this isn't even available anymore, I'm still going to keep this because I didn't think I was a collector, but apparently I am. And the next palette here is one from Black Moon Cosmetics, and this is one that I got last year. It's the Urban Myth palette, and I did a video with this. I wasn't really impressed at all by the formula, but I think that the packaging is just so cool. Like, I love that, and I love the color story of this palette, but I just was not enjoying the formula at all. I thought the mattes were just kind of powdery, like not super pigmented. They didn't really build on each other very well. The shimmers were kind of blah. I just wasn't blown away by this. Like, yeah, there are some nice shades in this palette, but I just don't see myself reaching for it. It's not a palette that... Here's the thing with me and palettes. Like, I want to... If I'm going to do my makeup and I'm kind of in a hurry, I'm not going to reach for a palette that I don't fully trust. And I don't fully trust this palette to give me a good look, and I know that I might have to work with it, and I just can't deal with that. Like, it's one thing if I'm just filming a video, but if I'm just doing my makeup, I just want to have a reliable formula that I know is going to work, that I know I'm not going to have to fuss with, that I know I can get my eye makeup done in 20 minutes, and I feel like with that palette, I don't think I can trust it for doing that. Favorite collab palette. This one was honestly pretty easy because I have to give it to the Kaleidos Club Nebula palette that they did with Angelica, because this palette is just spectacular. And I think that if I had the Shroud Cosmetics It's Freaking Bad's palette that Betty Jean did, I think that I probably would have made it as well, but I don't have that one. It was supposed to get sent to me in PR and I've never gotten it. And they keep saying they're gonna send it to me and I still haven't gotten it. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll get it at some point, maybe I won't. But this palette is amazing and I'm so happy I have it. I think that both Kaleidos and Angelica did a fantastic job. I love these dark mattes here. I love the shimmers. I love the color story. I think that the packaging is just insanely beautiful and so cool and so Angelica, and I'm so happy to have this in my collection. Now let's talk about two palettes that I didn't expect to love. And mostly the reason for this is color stories. I didn't really think that I would really get along with these color stories, and they're quite neutral, I'll be honest. But the first one is a palette here that, number one, I didn't think I would love it because it was from a new brand that I'd never heard of, and I didn't know, it was their first eyeshadow palette. I didn't know if it was going to be good. Like, it looked good in the pictures they sent me. They were like, hey, do you want to try this? I'm like, sure. So this is from Whatsup Beauty, and this is the Desert Monsoon palette. I feel like a lot of people have talked about this palette, but honestly, the formula in this palette is so good. Like, these shimmers are fantastic. The mattes are so buttery, so just buildable, so blendable, so amazing. I love this palette. I'm actually going to use this tomorrow because now looking at this, I'm like, I need to use this again because I haven't used this in quite some time. But this palette is so beautiful, and the packaging as well is so sturdy and heavy, but also sleek and small at the same time. Like, it just feels like a very expensive, good quality palette, and I'm so here for that because packaging to me is very important, and I feel like this hits every single mark that I want a palette to hit, and it has a wonderful formula to go along with it as well. If you want to get a neutral palette with pops of color in the shimmers, don't sleep on this because this is amazing. And another palette that I can literally say this exact same thing about is from DD Signature. I know I've talked about this palette so many times. It ended up very high in my last ranking, my last 16 palettes that I did. But this is the Neutral Wonder palette from DD Signature. Like I just said, I did get this sent in PR. Wouldn't have bought this myself because it is a hella neutral palette, but there's just something about this palette that keeps drawing me in. I've used this palette so many times, and every time I love the look that I do with this. These shimmers are spectacular. I really enjoy all of these mattes. I think they perform very well. You can get a very, very nice dark and dramatic crease. And then I love that the shimmers aren't like super dark. Like, yeah, this shade is kind of dark, but this is like a multi-chrome, and it's so freaking beautiful. It's a little bit of a flaky formula. If you don't like that, you're not going to like this, but it smooths out so nicely, like on your eye. If you use some kind of a glitter primer, like this just looks so nice. I know that this doesn't look good in a swatch, but you really need to just use it either sprayed or with some kind of a glitter primer, and it looks so nice and smooth and so shifty, and it's so beautiful. And I really enjoy this palette. Like I said, I didn't think I would love it as much as I did, but there was just something about that palette that really drew me in as soon as I started using it, and now I just want to keep using it, which for me is kind of rare. I never thought I would say that, especially about such a neutral palette. So let's see. Next question on the list is a palette that sparks joy. And this isn't really, this might be cheating because this isn't a pre-made palette, but this is one of my empty single palettes with single shadows in it. That didn't come out right. This is a palette full of single shadows that I put in. That's what I was trying to say. But this is my Clionadh Stained Glass collection. I don't have the full collection, but I do have quite a few shades, and I use these so much when I'm not filming. Like, these are the shimmers that I always want to use because they are just so amazing. Like, it's insane to me that Clionadh was like the first brand to come out with these kind of special shimmers, and they are still top of the line. Like, for me, nothing can beat out a Clionadh Stained Glass shimmer because these are just amazing. Like, yeah, there's a lot of brands that have come up with very similar things that I absolutely love, but I do find myself just reaching for my Clionadh shadows all the time. And I mean, there's obviously a reason for that. It's because they're just fantastic. I hope that they come out with more because I am going to be the first one on the list to buy more stained glass collection shadows from Clionadh, because even just looking at this, I'm like, oh, these are so beautiful. I'm like, what do I want to use next time? Like, I could literally use all of these, like, all day, every day. I don't think I would need other shimmers in my collection if I could only use these. That's a lie, because yeah, that's a lie, but I'm still just so happy I bought all of these. I've gotten some sent in PR. I don't know how many, but most of them I want to say I've bought myself, and sometimes they've put in some extras in my order just because they know it's me and they probably hope that I'm going to talk about them. So here you go, Clionadh. Next question is newest palettes in your collection. I think it's a palette, but I'm going to say palettes because I have a lot. Actually, don't have that many. I only have two that I want to mention. I got a really, really sweet package from a new brand to me, which is called Riza Beauty. They reached out to me on Instagram after I liked some of their photos. I think maybe I commented on one of them, but this is one of their newest palettes. I don't know if they have other palettes, but this is their newest palette, and this is called the Sweet Tragedy palette, Volume 1, which is interesting. So this one opens up sort of like the Kaleidos, what is that new one called? Anyway, it's sort of similar to the DD Signature fruit palettes that she used to have as well. I don't know if she still makes those, but here is what the colors in here look like. And I have swatched this palette, and the shimmers look absolutely stunning. These two right here reminds me very much of two of the shimmers in the It Spell Break the Rules palette. They might be exactly the same. They might come from the same place. I don't know. But I'm excited to use this. I'm not completely sure about the matte formula in this. When I did swatch it, it seemed kind of hard pressed, and it didn't pick up that nicely with a finger. So maybe I'm just gonna try a little bit with a brush. I just want to see like how much pigment I get onto my brush. Yeah, that actually looks so much better. It just didn't pick up very nicely on a finger. So I'm curious to try this because I'm intrigued by this color story. I'm intrigued by the brand, and they also sent me a blush palette, which I'm so excited to try out. This one is called Angel Baby, I think. Blush palette volume 1. Look at this packaging. Like, how freaking cool is that? And then it opens up like this, and this doesn't feel cheap at all. Like, this feels like really, really nice quality, and it has a really nice mirror in it. Super cute blush colors. I mean, I feel like I'm going to love this. And again, I couldn't keep my dirty fingers out of it, so I had to swatch it. And I feel like these are going to just blend out so nicely. Like they look really, really pigmented, like on my finger, but then once I start kind of buffing them out, like I feel like this is just going to blend so beautifully into a really, really nice blush, and I feel like I could share it out as well. I mean, obviously that's very intense and pigmented, but you guys know I don't mind a pigmented blush, so I think I'm gonna be able to make these work. At least I'm excited to test it out and see what the formula is like, because I love the idea of this packaging and it's just really cute. It's fun to discover a new brand that I haven't tried yet, and then to get a package that actually looks like really nice that I'm excited to test out. The next palette that is also new to my collection, this is a palette that I bought myself, and this is the new palette from Nomad Cosmetics. I know some of you sometimes ask, like, why don't you review Nomad? Why aren't you on their PR list? And I've said a couple times in the past that I've never been like the biggest fan of Nomad's formula, and I don't think that their formula is bad by any means. It's just, for me, I've always felt that their mattes have been a little bit too just soft and slippery for my liking, and I've had a hard time combining Nomad's mattes with other brands' matte formulas because I feel like they don't really match. And so for that reason, I haven't really been interested in picking up the other palettes that they've come out with, but I've heard so many new things or so many good things about their newer palettes that I wanted to give them another chance, and this color story really spoke to me. I think this is a beautiful, beautiful palette. This is called the Whistler Snow Lodge palette. You guys have probably seen everybody do videos with this, but obviously I didn't get it before the launch, so I'm gonna have to be a little bit late on this, but it looks beautiful, and I'm really excited to just play with these mattes again and see how I feel. I also love that there are no satins in their palettes anymore. They used to have quite a bit of satin shades, and these all look to be pretty nice and metallic shimmer, so I'm intrigued. I have pretty high expectations, and I think that my expectations are going to get met, but we'll see what happens. Oh, I just realized I forgot a question. I forgot question number 2, which was new favorite. And I definitely have some new favorites. I have to give it to all of the Blend Bunny palettes because I've had such a good time with all of these. I'm wearing one of them today, like I said in the beginning of the video, but I have all of them. I ended up buying the Dollhouse palette myself, and then after they saw my review, they ended up sending me the other 2. I'm sure you have all seen what these look like, but this is the Dollhouse palette. It's a neutral palette with a bit of a twist. I feel like there's enough fun shades in here to make this not a boring neutral palette, but you can also get like very basic neutral looks out of it if that is something that you want. But I think this palette is absolutely stunning. The palette I'm wearing today is of course the Surge palette, which I showed you earlier in the video. Also absolutely stunning. I've been so impressed by the quality from Blend Bunny that I just can't even seem to put these down. I think this one though is my favorite just because I can do whatever I want with this palette, and this is such a good companion palette to like my Clionadh Single Shadows, which I just absolutely love, like I said before. But yeah, I think this has to be my favorite palette from Blend Bunny. I thought I would like Surge more, but there's something about there not being shimmers in this that I actually really enjoy. I've come to a conclusion that I really enjoy all matte palettes and then using shimmers that I have elsewhere. That's just like, I don't know, something that I've been really liking lately, and I did feel like I had to mention these palettes because they have definitely become a new favorite. So the last question here is, first palette you used in 2022, and I had to scroll through my camera or my photos to see which palette I was wearing on, you know, the 1st of January, and it was this one from P. Louise. This is their newest palette. This is called the Watch the Queen Conquer, I can't even speak today, Conquer palette, Jesus. But this is a double-sided palette. I've talked so much about this palette. I think this is amazing. Like I said before when I was talking about P. Louise, I think that the matte formula from P. Louise is out of this world. It is so easy to work with. It's so pigmented. It's so buildable. It's just very reliable, like I also talked about, and I love that about it. I think that the colors in here are just so beautiful, and I love this palette. And just looking at all of the palettes that I have in front of me here that I've talked about just makes me so happy, because makeup just makes me so happy, you know? Like there's something about just sitting down in the morning and doing your makeup, whether I'm filming it or not filming it, it just makes me feel good, you know? And I think that if you haven't experienced that, which I'm sure all of you have because you're watching a makeup video on YouTube, but for all of the people who don't wear makeup, like I really wish I could share the experience with them, because there is something so empowering about just doing your makeup and having it come out good and just feeling like such a boss the rest of the day. Like makeup just makes me feel really pretty and it makes me feel good. So yeah, that's going to be it for today. Don't forget to check out the Ana Luisa sale if you want to get some new jewelry. Thank you, Ana Luisa, for sponsoring this video. My links will be down below. If you want to see some other tag videos, do I dare link my tag playlist? I'm gonna do it, but there's probably a lot of old videos up there. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.